All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice exam series where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Marcella wants her kids to take out the trash without being told. Currently, Marcella has to verbally tell her kids to take out the trash when it is full. Marcella decides to now put a red sticky note on the trash can when it is full. What is Marcella doing? So we're looking at Marcella's behavior. And what is Marcella trying to accomplish? Well, she wants her kids to take out the trash without being told. Currently, she has to give them a verbal prompt to take out the trash when full. So ideally, when the trash is full, that is the SD for the kids to take out the trash. Currently, it's a verbal prompt. Marcella decides now she's going to put a red sticky note on the trash can when it is full. So we've gone from verbally telling the kids take out the trash to now putting a red sticky note. So what is Marcella doing in terms of prompting? Is she A, fading in her verbal prompt? Well, she's not fading in the verbal prompt. When we fade in a prompt, we're introducing prompts. What she's doing is fading out. She's trying to fade out the verbal prompt to just the red sticky note. And then eventually, no note, no prompts whatsoever. But going from verbal, she fades it out to the red sticky note. What about C, using a gestural prompt instead of a verbal prompt? A red sticky note is more of a visual prompt. She's not gesturing to the kids that the trash can is full. She's using that red sticky note as the prompt to signal now's the time to take out the trash. And then D, using a modeling prompt instead of a verbal prompt. A modeling prompt is when the teacher, or in this case, Marcella, would demonstrate the behavior for the learner. Marcella demonstrated taking out the trash. That would be a model. She's not doing that. She's simply fading out her verbal prompt and then trying to transfer control to the red sticky note. Eventually, we're going to transfer control to no prompt and just the trash being full. After many years of bartending, Matt is able to make any drink you can think of and is able to execute several different bottle tricks. He's one of the best bartenders in his state. How might we describe Matt's bartending skills? This is kind of an abstract question because we want to describe Matt's bartending skills. Now, be careful here. Remember, when you're describing things and defining things, especially on the exam, we want to be using ABA terminology. And so we want to avoid subjective ideas, mentalisms. Stick with ABA terminology. That's the safest bet. So in this case, Matt, he's a bartender. He can make any drink you can think of, and he has all these different bottle tricks. He's a very good bartender. A lot of tricks, can make a lot of drinks. How would you describe the skills? A, he is very talented. Maybe. But is that behavior analytic? Not necessarily. Maybe I don't think Matt is talented. Maybe you do. It's very subjective. We need to go with some of our own terminology, like B and C, the repertoire. When we talk about a repertoire, we're talking typically about a set of skills or even sometimes behaviors. And so to say Matt has a large repertoire when it comes to bartending would be true. That can't be argued. He's got a ton of tricks. He can make a ton of drinks. Even if I don't think it's impressive, it's still a large repertoire. That is very objective. We would say Matt has a large repertoire. He doesn't have a small repertoire because he can make any drink. He has several different tricks. It's very large, right? He's got a lot of skills. And he has worked very hard. Just like A, maybe Matt is super talented and he didn't work hard. Maybe he's just gifted at this. That's a very subjective thing. We're not using terminology when we say he's worked very hard. Very subjective. We want to use ABA ideas that can be measured, that can be quantified. And what we would say is Matt has a very large repertoire of bartending skills. You worked with a client a year ago on greeting others and engaging in conversation for multiple responses. While at the store one day, you run into that client who you haven't seen in 7 months, and you engage in a 10-minute conversation with the client. What did the client demonstrate? So we're looking at the client's behavior. What do we know so far about the client? Well, you worked with them a year ago on greetings and conversations. At the store, you see that client who you haven't seen in 7 months. So you haven't taught them in 7 months about these conversations, and yet you engage in a 10-minute conversation. And so if we think about that scenario, you work with the client on conversation, 7 months go by, no teaching from you, you haven't taught the client in 7 months, and yet when they see you, they can still engage in that skill. So what do we call it when you can engage in a skill even after teaching has stopped and time has passed? A, receptive language. Well, receptive language is listener behavior, when you're told to do something and you can do it. The client's holding a conversation here. He's not being given instructions. So A is out. What about maintenance? Is the client demonstrating maintenance? Well, sure. You taught this client to do something. You stopped teaching them for an extended period of time. Even after that teaching stopped, they can still demonstrate that skill. They've been able to maintain conversation. What about C, overgeneralization? Well, they're not overgeneralizing. Overgeneralizing happens when behavior happens at the wrong place or too much. This is the totally appropriate reason to be engaging in conversation. And then echoics. Echoics is one of our verbal behaviors. Echoics is exactly what it sounds like. The speaker or the listener is echoing one another. So if I say something and you echo it to me right back, that is an echoic. The client's not doing that. He's actually engaging in conversation. The client, by demonstrating conversation 7 months later after teaching has stopped several months ago, is demonstrating B, maintenance. Which of the following answer choices is an example of a response prompt? Remember, we have stimulus prompts and we have response prompts. Stimulus prompts act directly on the stimulus of interest. So things like positional prompts, where we're changing the location or changing the size of the prompt. Response prompts act on the response themselves, physical prompts, model prompts, verbal prompts. So we need an answer choice that is an example of a response prompt. A, you're teaching the letter A to a client, so you write it larger than the other letters on the whiteboard. Are we acting on the response here, or are we manipulating the stimulus? Well, we're manipulating the stimulus. Our stimulus is the letter A. We're making it larger. This is a stimulus prompt. B, within a field of 3, you move the green card closer to the client. Are we manipulating the response, or are we manipulating the stimulus? Well, the stimulus. We're moving the card closer. This is a positional prompt. C, you hold a learner's hand and help them twist open a doorknob to get inside the bathroom. Now you're actually physically prompting out the response. The prompt is acting directly on that response. This is a response prompt. And then D, all of these are response prompts. A and B is not. D can't be our answer. It must be C. You hold a learner's hand and help them twist open a doorknob to get inside the bathroom. A behavior analyst who also acts as the clinical director for a local ABA company just hired 3 behavior technicians. All 3 have at least a year of experience working in the field and come with good recommendations. What will be the most efficient way to teach the new technicians some of the specific tasks they'll need to complete at the company? So, we are going to teach technicians these new tasks, and we want to be efficient about it. What do we know so far? Well, we know they're already behavior technicians and have a year of experience and good recommendations. With the experience, with the recommendations, they seem to be somewhat competent. So we want to teach them these specific tasks so they can work at the company efficiently. Now, let's think about our different chainings, forward, backwards, and total task chaining. With forward and backwards chaining, we're teaching step by step, very methodically. When you have a learner who is competent, who has experience, who can learn potentially quickly, you might be able to get away with total task chaining. Because with total task chaining, you're teaching that entire task and then focusing on the steps they may struggle with. So if we've already got 3 behavior technicians with experience, with good recommendations, the most efficient way, meaning the way that's going to save time and resources, would be total task chaining. There's no reason to start by teaching them step by step. If we start with total task and it's not effective, then we can go to forward and backwards. But to start, total task will be much more efficient. In the behavior chain interruption, to use a behavior interruption strategy, the learner already has to master most of the skills. Technicians are still new. So these tasks you're teaching them are still new. So you can't use the interruption strategy yet, but to be efficient, you can attempt the total task chaining first. If an intervention calls for you to build behavioral momentum with the client, what strategy would typically be associated with this approach? So we want to build behavioral momentum. When we talk behavioral momentum, what do we mean? Well, we're trying to build the client up and so we can get them to engage in our desired responses. And so when we're building behavioral momentum, what is a key way we can do that? What we can do is get them responding by asking them very easy things first, followed by the more difficult responses. When we do that, what strategy is that? Is it A, high probability request sequence? Well, yes, with a high probability request sequence, we are asking them a bunch of high probability requests that we know they can do and that we know they will do. And then once momentum is built, we follow it with that low probability request. It is not B, it's not a low probability request sequence, it's a high P sequence. The Premack principle has to do with using the opportunity to engage in a preferred response as reinforcement. So it's not necessarily the opposite of a high P request sequence, but it's pretty close because the Premack principle, they have to do the low probability response first, but this is not the Premack principle. And then non-contingent reinforcement. Non-contingent reinforcement doesn't build behavioral momentum because non-contingent reinforcement is not contingent on any responses at all. So if we're trying to build momentum, the strategy we're going to use is this high probability request sequence. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Subscribe if you have not already. When you pass, let us know. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.